Incompetency to stand trial. Introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this brief course on understanding incompetency to stand trial. We'll delve into the critical legal concept of incompetency and its implications in the criminal justice system. Incompetency to stand trial is a complex issue that intersects law and mental health, impacting how the legal system addresses individuals facing criminal charges. So, let's embark on this quick journey to grasp the key aspects of incompetency, its definition, legal standards, assessment process, and the consequences it carries. By the end of this session, you'll have a foundational understanding of why the mental state of a defendant matters in the legal context. Let's get started. Explain that this is a legal term referring to a defendant's mental state at the time of trial. In the context of criminal law, incompetency to stand trial refers to a legal term that assesses a defendant's mental state at the time of their trial proceedings. It's crucial to understand that competency, in this context, doesn't directly relate to the guilt or innocence of the defendant in committing the alleged crime. Instead, it focuses on the defendant's mental capacity to comprehend and participate effectively in the legal proceedings against them. Competency to stand trial is a foundational principle designed to ensure a fair and just legal process. It recognizes that individuals must have a basic level of understanding and mental fitness to be able to participate in their defense and comprehend the charges brought against them. The assessment of competency addresses whether a defendant is mentally competent to assist their attorney, understand the charges, and engage in the courtroom proceedings. Definition. Definition of incompetency to stand trial. Incompetency to stand trial is a legal concept that refers to a defendant's inability to participate in and understand the criminal proceedings against them due to a mental impairment or disability. This impairment may hinder the defendant's capacity to comprehend the nature and purpose of the charges, assist their defense attorney effectively, or engage in the courtroom process. The determination of incompetency is not a judgment on the defendant's guilt or innocence regarding the alleged crime. Instead, it focuses solely on the individual's mental fitness to undergo the legal proceedings. The goal is to ensure a fair trial and protect the defendant's right to a proper defense, as guaranteed by the legal system. Legal systems generally establish specific standards and procedures for assessing incompetency. Professionals, often psychologists or psychiatrists, conduct evaluations to determine whether the defendant possesses the mental competence required to face trial. If a defendant is found incompetent, legal proceedings may be temporarily suspended, and efforts may be made to restore their competency through appropriate mental health interventions. Legal standards. Legal standards for incompetency to stand trial. The legal standards for incompetency to stand trial vary by jurisdiction, but there are common principles that guide the assessment process. These standards are in place to ensure a consistent and fair evaluation of a defendant's mental capacity within the legal system. Here are some key legal standards often considered. 1. Understanding of charges. The defendant must have the ability to understand the nature and seriousness of the criminal charges brought against them. 2. Ability to assist counsel. The defendant should be capable of assisting their defense attorney in a meaningful way. This involves providing relevant information, making decisions about the defense strategy, and engaging in the legal process. 3. Competence during proceedings. The defendant must be able to participate in the court proceedings with a reasonable degree of rational understanding. This includes comprehending the roles of various courtroom participants, the purpose of the trial, and the possible consequences. 4. Communication skills. The defendant should have sufficient communication skills to communicate effectively with their attorney. This involves expressing their thoughts, understanding legal advice, and engaging in discussions about the case. 5. Time-specific competency. Competency is assessed at the time of the legal proceedings. A defendant may be deemed incompetent if, at the time of the trial, they cannot meet the required mental standards, even if they were competent at the time of the alleged crime. 6. Consistency with due process. Legal standards for incompetency must align with constitutional principles, ensuring that defendants receive a fair and just trial. Any determination of incompetency should be made with careful consideration of due process rights. Assessment process. Assessment process for incompetency to stand trial. The assessment of incompetency to stand trial involves a thorough examination of the defendant's mental state to determine whether they possess the necessary capacities to participate in legal proceedings. The process typically includes the following key steps. Referral for evaluation. The assessment is often initiated when there are concerns about the defendant's mental competency. This can be raised by the defense attorney, prosecution, or the court itself. Selection of evaluators. Qualified mental health professionals, such as forensic psychologists or psychiatrists, are selected to conduct the evaluation. These experts specialize in assessing mental health within a legal context. Review of legal standards. Evaluators familiarize themselves with the specific legal standards for incompetency in the jurisdiction where the trial is taking place. This ensures that the assessment aligns with the established criteria. Clinical interviews. The defendant undergoes comprehensive clinical interviews conducted by the evaluators. These interviews explore various aspects, including the defendant's understanding of the charges, ability to assist counsel, and comprehension of legal proceedings. Psychological testing. Standardized psychological tests may be administered to assess cognitive functioning, psychiatric symptoms, and other relevant factors. These tests provide additional objective data to support the evaluation. Collateral information. Evaluators may gather information from collateral sources, such as medical records, prior mental health history, and input from family or friends. This helps in obtaining a comprehensive understanding of the defendant's mental health. Observations. Observations of the defendant's behavior during the assessment process, including their demeanor, coherence, and ability to engage in conversation, contribute to the overall evaluation. Documentation and reporting. Evaluators document their findings in a comprehensive report. This report includes an analysis of the defendant's mental capacities in relation to the legal standards for competency. Submission to the court. The evaluation report is submitted to the court, and the findings may be presented during legal proceedings. The court considers this information when making determinations related to the defendant's competency. Legal proceedings based on findings. Depending on the assessment findings, legal proceedings may be adjusted. If the defendant is found competent, the trial proceeds. If deemed incompetent, the court may temporarily suspend proceedings, and efforts may be made to restore competency through appropriate mental health interventions. Consequences. Consequences of incompetency to stand trial. The determination of incompetency to stand trial can have significant consequences for both the legal process and the individual facing criminal charges. Here are the key consequences associated with being found incompetent. Temporary suspension of legal proceedings. If a defendant is found incompetent, legal proceedings may be temporarily suspended. This allows time for the individual to receive appropriate mental health interventions aimed at restoring their competency. Psychiatric treatment and evaluation. The court may order psychiatric treatment or evaluation to address the underlying mental health issues contributing to incompetency. This could involve therapy, medication, or other interventions to improve the defendant's mental state. Periodic re-evaluation. Defendants found incompetent are often subject to periodic re-evaluations to assess whether their mental competence has been restored. The frequency of these evaluations depends on jurisdictional laws and the nature of the individual's mental health condition. Potential commitment to mental health facility. In some cases, if the individual poses a risk to themselves or others, or if their mental health cannot be adequately addressed in a community setting, they may be committed to a mental health facility for treatment until they are deemed competent to stand trial. Guardianship or conservatorship. In situations where the defendant's mental incapacity extends beyond the legal proceedings, the court may consider appointing a guardian or conservator to make decisions on their behalf, particularly regarding legal matters. Case disposition. Depending on the jurisdiction and the severity of the charges, the legal system may explore alternative dispositions, such as civil commitment, if the individual's mental health cannot be sufficiently restored to enable them to stand trial. Legal rights. Legal rights of individuals found incompetent to stand trial. When an individual is found incompetent to stand trial, they retain certain legal rights to ensure fair treatment and protection of their well-being. These rights may vary by jurisdiction, but common principles include: right to treatment. Individuals found incompetent have the right to receive appropriate and effective mental health treatment. This may include therapy, medication, counseling, or other interventions aimed at restoring their competency. Least restrictive setting. Legal systems often emphasize placing individuals in the least restrictive setting necessary to achieve the goal of restoring competency. This means avoiding unnecessary confinement or restrictions on personal freedom. Periodic reevaluation. Defendants have the right to periodic reevaluations of their mental competence. This ensures that their status is regularly reviewed, and adjustments can be made to their treatment plan or legal proceedings as needed. Access to legal representation. Individuals found incompetent maintain the right to legal representation. Attorneys continue to advocate for their clients' best interests, even if the primary focus shifts to matters related to mental health. Treatment and restoration of competency. Due process protections. Due process rights, such as the right to notice and a hearing, remain applicable to individuals found incompetent. This ensures that any decisions affecting their legal status are made through fair and transparent procedures. Case examples. John Doe. Background: John Doe, facing charges of assault, was exhibiting signs of severe mental illness during the pre-trial process. He was unable to communicate effectively with his attorney, understand the charges against him, or participate in his defense. Outcome: after a thorough competency assessment, John Doe was deemed incompetent to stand trial. Legal proceedings were temporarily suspended, and he was placed in a mental health facility for treatment. Periodic reevaluations were scheduled to monitor his progress. Jane Smith. Background: Jane Smith, charged with theft, displayed erratic behavior in court, prompting concerns about her mental state. She struggled to comprehend the legal proceedings and appeared disoriented during discussions with her attorney. Outcome: following a comprehensive evaluation, Jane Smith was found incompetent to stand trial. She was committed to a mental health facility for treatment. Her defense attorney worked closely with mental health professionals to address the underlying issues affecting her competency. Robert Johnson. Background: Robert Johnson, accused of white-collar crime, exhibited signs of paranoia and delusions. He was unable to assist his defense attorney, often providing inconsistent and irrational information. Outcome: after a thorough assessment, Robert Johnson was found incompetent to stand trial due to a severe mental health condition. He was committed to a psychiatric facility for treatment, including medication and therapy. The court ordered periodic reevaluations to assess his progress.